program is brought to you by Extratech, a leading professional IT training institute, and 3B's Education and Visa Services, a leading Australian education consultancy.
आदरणीय दर्शकवृन्द तथा श्रोताबिन नमस्कार। साप्ताहिक रूपमा हरेक मंगलबार बेलुकी साँझ 9 बजे एभरेस्ट टिभीको फेसबुक पेज, युट्युब च्यानल साथसाथै अन्य सोशल मिडिया ह्यान्डलहरूबाट एकैसाथ प्रसारण हुने कार्यक्रम द एभरेस्ट शो लिएर म कार्यक्रम प्रस्तुता भवि श्रेष्ठ तपाईहरुको माझमा आज पनि उपस्थित भइसकेको छु। हामी द एभरेस्ट शोमा अस्ट्रेलियामा बसोबास गर्दै आउनुभएका विभिन्न नेपालीहरू जो विविध क्षेत्रमा आबद्ध हुनुहुन्छ उहाँहरूसँग केही संघर्षका र उहाँहरूको सफलताका कुराहरूमा विशेष चर्चा गर्ने गर्दछौं। र हामी द एभरेस्ट शो एभरेस्ट टिभीमा मात्र नभई तपाईहरुले नेपालमै अवस्थित हुनुहुन्छ भने पनि विशेष गरी पूर्वाञ्चलमा इटरी एफएम 92.5 मेगाहर्ज को ध्वनि तरंगबाट साथसाथै हाम्रो पात्रोको मोबाइल एपबाट पनि हाम्रो कार्यक्रम सुन्न र युट्युब च्यानल मार्फत हेर्न सक्नुहुन्छ। आजको यस विशेष अंकमा भने हामीले त्यस्ता विशेष व्यक्तित्वलाई अतिथिको रूपमा हाम्रो स्टुडियोमा आमन्त्रण गरेका छौं जो विगत लामो समयदेखि रिसर्चमा आबद्ध हुनुहुन्छ। पर्टिकुलरली भन्नुपर्दा म उहाँलाई एउटा फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्च र राइटरको रूपमा पनि परिचय गराउन चाहन्छु। सो उहाँको शुभ नाम रहेको छ अनिशा गौतम। उहाँ विगत लामो समयदेखि यूएनएसडब्ल्यू को विभिन्न रोलहरुमा जनरली रिसर्च रोलहरुमा रहँदै आउनु भएको छ र उहाँ अहिले पनि एउटा युनियनमा रिसर्च एनालिस्ट को रूपमा नै कार्यरत हुनुहुन्छ। सो आजको हाम्रो यस एपिसोडमा हामी उहाँसँग रिसर्चको महत्व कति हुन्छ र एउटा रिसर्चर बन्नको लागि के गर्न पर्दछ र अझ भनौं विशेषतः फेमिनिजम मुभमेन्टको बारेमा नै विशेष गरी चर्चा गर्ने हामीले जमर्को गरेका छौं र ढिला नगरी आउनुस् कार्यक्रममा स्वागत गरौं हंसाजीलाई। हंसाजी वेलकम टु आवर शो।
थ्यांक यू।
सो आज मैले त नेपालीमै परिचय गरिहाले हैन, तपाई त्यति धेरै नेपाली नबोल्नु भए तापनि हामी मिक्सरमै हामी कार्यक्रम सञ्चालन गर्ने छौं इंग्लिश नेपालीमै पनि। सो एज अ रिसर्च एनालिस्ट what is your day-to-day role?
Okay. So at the moment, I work for the United Workers Union and I do research for them, and we cover lots of industries, about 45 industries. Awesome. You know, hospitality, security, aged care, home care, early childhood education. So what happens is on a day-to-day basis, this different portfolio will email us and ask the research team, can you please provide this bit of research for us? We need it. We're going into bargaining, you know, we're running a campaign and we need this information. So can you please provide that? So I've just done some work for early childhood education. They want to do a national campaign because they get paid very poorly. Okay. So my job was to create a survey. So I've been spending the last 2 months creating a survey to see how early childhood educators feel about their working conditions. Awesome. So that's one example of the kind of research.
Sweet. So I'd like to start from your journey at UNSW as a student and as a staff itself. And so how was your journey as a student studying Bachelor of Arts in Honours and doing PhD? And even you are a PhD candidate now in philosophy in University of New England, I believe. So how it's like to be a researcher? Let's hear some experiences of your UNSW journey.
Okay, so I started UNSW with a media degree, but I didn't enjoy it because I found that you couldn't think very critically in the degree, and I accidentally took, not accidentally, but I chose feminist studies and some philosophy and some sociology, and I thought this is way more interesting. So I switched to a Bachelor of Arts and I majored in women's and gender studies and philosophy. And then I decided to do honours because I really enjoyed it. it was fascinating. Humanities is no, it's not just about acquiring knowledge, it's about learning how to think about the world. And as soon as I started the degree, I was like, yes, this is what I am really passionate about. So I did honours in 2009.
Okay.
And then after 2009, I decided to do a PhD in philosophy, feminist philosophy, for the same reason. I was really interested in it and it's important work. And yeah. But being a researcher it's not easy. It's not an easy job. You're working to deadlines. So, you know, it's different hours. There's no 9 to 5, you know, you're like working. So for example, if you're writing a chapter, you know, you have to spend days and days, weeks, months researching, and then you have to sit down and write. And that's the hard part, sitting down to write. And, you know, it requires discipline to make sure you get everything done. You need to be meticulous. You know, you have all the information that you need, and there's it's a very iterative process. So you write a draft, you send it to your supervisor, they give you feedback, you write another draft, they send it back, and it happens 3 or 4 times depending on how you write. Okay. So you have to be able to take criticism. Mm-hmm. But if you are interested in it, there's nothing else I would rather be doing. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you have experience as a program support officer and even academic tutor in UNSW. You have taught, especially I believe in introductory academic program, which is especially designed for the students who are from Australia or who have got the scholarship to study in Australia.
Yeah.
So how did you find yourself as a tutor?
I used to work for the Learning Centre at UNSW, and they ran all these programs. And the Learning Centre runs all of these different kinds of academic skills sorts of programs. And I had no experience when I started tutoring, and I was terrified because you go from never having tutored to suddenly tutoring, especially with the IAP. They're very qualified people. They're people who, you know, in their countries are lawyers and judges and doctors, and here I am in a classroom trying to teach them how to write an essay because that's what's required of them. But they're actually incredibly intelligent and qualified. And I loved teaching that program because it's a different kind of teaching. It's not like I'm a teacher and they're a student and I give them knowledge. It's very democratic because I learn from them and they learn from me. And it's a much different atmosphere than a regular classroom. But I really, really love teaching, and it's something that I miss a lot.
So it was pretty much both way learning rather than the conventional teaching method? Yeah,
I mean, I teach them how to write essays, and they teach me about, like, you know, I learned so much about Indonesia and the, you know, social, cultural aspects of Indonesia. There were lots of, like, people from Papua New Guinea, and you just learn about different things. And they also have their expertise. I remember part of the program we used to teach public speaking.
That's correct.
But one of my students was actually a very accomplished public speaker back in his hometown. So I was like, you take the class. I mean, you have much more experience in this. And so it was great to be able to speak to them as adults and interact in that sort of very equal sort of way.
Just adding to it, you have been researcher for a while, and you have completed your, I think, PhD. You have already completed your PhD part-time in UNSW as well?
No, so I started at UNSW, but because I moved to Singapore, I stopped in the middle, so I put it aside. Yeah. I moved to Singapore and I came back, and now I have just started again. I picked it up again at the University of New England.
Okay.
So I probably have about a year and a half left part-time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as I'd like to discuss about one of the controversial issues in our society, especially the difference between the high achieving students and the normal students. As I'd say you are one of the high achieving students, and but why did you choose to study Bachelor of Arts Honours? Because many people who have got a very good GPA, good academic records, they choose to study accounting, let's say they choose to be a doctor, engineer, instead of doing the humanities courses, because what we have a misconception, or let's say misbelief, that studying humanities would lead you nowhere at the end.
Yes.
Because there are no more any graduate opportunities and all.
Yeah.
And even just looking at the recent government policies, they have increased the fees of humanities compared to other degrees. So what's your take on this context?
So there's a number of things there. I chose to do humanities because I love thinking about things. So if you do a humanities degree, you get access to such a wealth of different types of knowledges, like from sociology to history to philosophy to, Asian studies to whatever else that, social work, there are so many different ways of thinking about the world, and you get access to all of that, and it really changes the way you see the world. It's a way of thinking critically about the world that is not very, it helps you to, you're not narrow-minded. It's not possible to come out of an arts degree with a narrow mind unless you just didn't attend, because it expands your mind and it changes your life. But I was interested, that was the main thing. I was passionate about the topics. If you are interested in social justice, it's one of the most useful degrees to do. I think if I had it my way, everyone would have to do a BA before they did everything else. But, that's never going to happen. You can do other things, for sure, like law, for example, is great if you want to get help people who are less privileged, but it teaches you how to look at the power structures in the world, and you see who's got privilege and who's disadvantaged, and it just gives you a much clearer picture of the world as it is. And I think that's really useful if your goal in life is to help people.
So it's really amazing to hear that being a high achieving student, you choose to study Bachelor of Arts instead of doing any other degrees that are so-called degrees, let's say, which have more, let's say, broader graduate opportunities in the job market.
Yes, so that's the second part of the question about the vocational degrees. So yes, there are degrees where that are vocational in that you do an accounting degree and you end up an accountant. You do a law degree, you end up a lawyer, etc.
Okay.
A Bachelor of Arts is not like that, obviously. And I think there is a misconception that because it doesn't lend itself straight into a particular job, that it is difficult to get a job. I don't believe that is the case, because I have taught plenty of people who've gone on to finish a Bachelor of Arts, and just looking at my own friends as well, I actually think that you end up with a very open-ended degree that allows you to insert yourself wherever you feel like you want to go. So I have friends who are working in the disability sector, who work in government in emergency relief, who are academics, who work in museums. And just with the Bachelor of Arts, I think it gives you a lot more options. The difference is that you have to maybe work harder to position yourself where you want to go. So if as I mentioned, if you do accounting, you know what you're going to do at the end of it.
Absolutely.
With the BA, you have the skills, then you have to figure out, you have to do that process of what do I want to do and what do I need to do to get there, which I think is more fulfilling at the end because you're following something you want. But it's maybe a little bit harder, but it's not that much harder. I don't think that people should be not doing it because they think it's a dead-end degree. But that's also a social problem. As you mentioned earlier, even in Australia, it's very undervalued. We've suddenly raised the fees on the Bachelor of Arts. Because one of the reasons for this is it's not good for the economy, apparently, because it doesn't lend you to a job. That's what they want. They want you to come out and then go straight into some office job. The other reason is that they don't want people to learn how to think, especially this government. They don't want people coming out of universities and questioning their policies. They want nice people who have narrow views to do their job. So those are two reasons that the government's got this sort of policy.
So being a researcher yourself, as there are many people who are seeking to be a researcher, who are really passionate about research, but they have no idea how to start, what to do to be a researcher. So what do you suggest them?
Well, I think there are a few things that you need to do. First of all, when you are a researcher, it becomes like a fundamental part of your life. What you are researching, you're like completely saturated in it. So it's really important that you are interested in it and that you're passionate about it, because sometimes it's difficult, it's a slog. And what you need at that time is to be able to say, this is really hard, but I believe in this work, and that will keep you going. So I think if you don't have that, it's going to be very difficult. Second thing is you need to figure out what kind of research you want to do. Like, pathways into research are very different depending on your interests, like for example, I would say it's probably a little bit easier in maybe in the sciences, like you do a university degree and you go into research, because there's just more money. People are interested in scientific work. Whereas in humanities, there's less. If you want to be an academic, it's a very hard road. You have to do your PhD, have to have your publications. At the moment, because of tertiary government funding cuts, it's very difficult. Yeah. But there are other kinds of research. Like, I work for a union. So maybe, if you want to work for a union, you need to get involved in your workplace, become an organizer, get sort of experience working within a union space. And then when the jobs come up, then you can apply for them. So I would say to people who want to be a researcher, think about what area you want to research, where you want to research, what type of industry, and then go and get the experience, even if it is just by volunteering for a little bit or something. See if you like it, and then you can proceed from there.
Awesome. So that was really informative, to be honest. So let's jump into the feminism, as you are a feminist researcher.
Yes.
So I'd just like to start from people are often misunderstood what is feminism. So from your perception, what is feminism and why feminism?
Feminism is the radical notion that women are people too. So I think the idea behind that is that feminism is about trying to equalize the status of women in society. There's nothing man-hating about it. Bringing women up doesn't mean pushing men down. It just means bringing women up to the level at which men already are. The second thing about my feminism, and I hope everyone's kind of feminism, is that it's intersectional. So my feminism isn't just about women. It's like a broader approach that looks at, race and gender and class and age and disability and other things. So my feminism is about advocating for anyone who is disadvantaged. A lot of the time that happens to be women, that is true, but those are not the only disadvantages. So I think feminism, in a sense, is humanism, but you are looking out for people who are minorities and who are oppressed and who are disadvantaged. Yeah. And why feminism is, well, women still earn way less than men globally. Women still have far fewer career opportunities. Women still face more violence at home and at work. There's just so many reasons. I mean, the Me Too movement that's been on TV recently, look at what's happening in our parliaments at the moment. I think there are ample reasons for people to think about the place of women in society and why is it that women are for more than 50% of the world's population and yet are way more disadvantaged than men.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, as you have already mentioned and answered one of my upcoming questions, that are feminist anti-male, as you have said, that it is nothing like anti-male, but it is equalizing female and bringing up to the level of the same men as a...
Yeah.
So,
I don't know who thought of this feminists are anti-male. I hear it all the time on the media as well. I think Lady Gaga or someone made a comment like, you know, I'm not anti-male, and you're like, well, that's not what feminism is. It's got nothing to do. It's about, well, as far as it concerns men, it's about asking men to realize that they're privileged in a way that women aren't, and it's about asking men to be allies to help women overcome those disadvantages. Nothing anti-male about it.
So, what do you think that how has feminism harmed or helped women? In what context?
Harmed or helped?
Yeah.
I
What do you think? Feminism has harmed women or helped women?
I think it's ever harmed women.
Okay. So it helped, then in what context it helped the women?
I mean, that's a really broad question. Just thinking about Australia, for example, it was the feminists who lobbied to have the Sex Discrimination Act of 1984, which says that you cannot discriminate against a woman in the workplace for being a woman. You know, it was feminists who lobbied to have domestic violence recognized as a form of violence. I mean, there are so many ways in which feminism and unionism in Australia is very intertwined. Feminists have long been part of the union who've asked for parental leave, wage increases. You know, it's just multitudes. I mean, I don't see any downside to feminism, and so many ways in which it has brought to light issues and helped to bring about change. So, but I'm biased.
Okay, that's all right. So, one of the things that always strike me is like, even there is the discrimination in terminologies that we use in our daily life, especially, let's say, for instance, we use the term cameraman, we use the term chairman instead of chairperson most of the time. And even representing the human beings, we would say manpower. So why is not women power? What do you think? So do we see the discrimination in the language itself, or is there any, let's say, power structure that has designed these terminologies to be more inclined towards the male?
100%. So this is where my philosophy degree comes in handy. So this is like the language that we speak, it shapes our world in a really fundamental way. The language that you use, just think about, for example, all the words in Nepali that have absolutely no translation in English. You know, sometimes I talk to my parents about this. I'm like, what does that mean? And then they're like, you know, there's no like direct translation. So languages are really important in shaping how we see the world. And the fact that the English language, like so many other languages, is so male-centric is a reflection of the fact that this has been a patriarchal society for a long time. And, you know, it was cameraman for a long time because only men could be cameramen. And I think it's important to try and change those things because it changes when language changes, your perception changes. It's really important that we start to be aware of the way that these sort of linguistic cues, you know, like perpetuate sort of this patriarchal idea of men being able to do certain things and women being able to do other things. Like imagine a little girl hearing the word, I can't think of another example, like cameraman, you know, if a little girl hears the word and she's just going to think that all camera people are men, and that really limits the way she thinks about herself. Maybe she wants to be a camera person, but now she's already thinking, oh, it's only, you know, a male job. So I think it's really important to try and change the language. It's a really simple thing that we can do, and it really changes your perception, our perception as a society, I think.
Okay. So what do you think, so we're almost at the end of our show. So last but not the least, what do you think that we should endeavor to create an equal opportunity for female and male in the global context? As you have mentioned that even still today, females are underpaid. Let's say females, let's say they're deprived of many opportunities compared to male who are provided more favor, let's say more power in any sector. So what do you think that we can do from our perspective or from our point to create an equal opportunity, let's say a friendly environment for everyone, leaving no one behind, according to the UN.
The most important thing we can do as individuals is to collectivize, it's to come out to rallies, it's to unionize, it's to come together to try and change these things, because individuals who change the world are rare. You know, people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, they're rare. People who change the world through collective action are not rare, because that's how most action changes. If all of us get together and say, we want this, then change will happen. It's just everyone needs to be committed to that sort of activist sort of mentality to say, yes, we're going to go out on the streets and protest the Black Lives Matter, or, you know, whatever it is that is your passion or cause. And then other things, like we were just talking about, very simple things when you're in and amongst your friends, just being aware of the language that you use, being aware of, if you're a man, being aware of your privilege. You're always in a space, if you're men and women in a space, men always have certain privileges, and it's just being aware that, you know, for example, if you're having a conversation, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but men are always quite happy to jump in and have their opinions heard, whereas women are more hesitant to do that. One easy thing you can do is just say, let's hear from, you know, what do you think? Is making space for a woman to jump in and say what she wants. So really easy behaviors like that, I think, can really change your workplace or your relationship with your friends or whatever it is. And just being respectful of each other's, you know, if you're like being respectful of each other's, privileges and disadvantages. So you might just be aware who you're talking to,
right,
what you're talking about, how it's going to affect them. It's just about being more thoughtful, I think, in your interaction with people. Yeah.
So it's just like simply being aware of the common things that we do in our daily basis.
Yeah.
Be it speaking, be it, let's say, treating our sisters, daughters, mothers, females, in general. So finally, we are at the end of our program. Is there anything in particular that you would like to convey to our audiences?
Don't be scared of feminism. That's what I want to say. Go out there and see what it's about. It's feminism. There is not one feminism. It's feminisms for a reason. There are different kinds. And it's just about making the world a better place for your daughter or for your sister or whoever comes after us. Trying to make sure that your legacy is that you made the world a little bit better for them.
I'm really thankful for your invaluable time and knowledgeable insights, indeed, and I really appreciate your thoughts regarding feminism, regarding researching, and I wish you all the best for your future career as well. So, thank you very much for today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.